Hello and welcome to English Unpacked. Thank you for joining us today.
Just relax, listen carefully, and enjoy today's topic. Why are some people rich? Let's begin.
So, if you are listening to this right now, you are probably sitting on a plane.
Yep.
You're flying at, maybe 500 miles an hour. And since you've got about 45 minutes until you land, we wanted to put together this deep dive specifically for you.
Right, because statistically speaking, there is a very, very high probability that you are quietly worrying about money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe not outright panicking, but it's running in the background, like this heavy operating system eating up your battery.
And humming.
Right. But I want you to consider this for a second. Think about the person sitting next to you right now.
Well, that's a good thought experiment.
Right. Maybe they are wearing, I don't know, a 10-year-old hoodie. Got some beat-up headphones on. What if that person is secretly a multimillionaire?
While the guy up in first class, sipping his champagne,
Yeah.
he could literally be one missed paycheck away from total bankruptcy.
Exactly. And that is exactly what we are getting into today. By the time those landing gears hit the tarmac, our goal is to completely rewire how you look at the mechanics of wealth, of time, and, human behavior.
Because we really need to dissect the invisible forces here. The stuff that separates the people who build lasting financial power from the people who are they're just running on an incredibly fast treadmill.
Right. And society kind of hands us this very convenient pre-packaged set of excuses, doesn't it? Like when we look at high net worth individuals.
Oh, absolutely. We desperately want to believe it's either astronomical luck or, a 100-hour work week that completely destroys their soul.
Or they just have a massive trust fund.
Right, exactly. The trust fund excuse.
It's the comfort of the cliche, I think. Because if they were just born rich, it completely absolves the rest of us from having to analyze our own financial architecture.
Precisely. And, yes, obviously inheritance and an absolute lottery ticket luck certainly do exist in the ecosystem. But focusing on them obscures the behavioral reality. True, sustainable wealth is almost entirely the result of a specific, repeatable set of behavioral algorithms.
It's highly intentional.
Exactly. It's a psychological posture. It really is not just circumstantial.
So to really pull this apart, let's ground this in a scenario that plays out in thousands of corporate offices every single day.
Let's do it.
Think about two guys. We'll call them Alex and Ben. They are 22 years old, both walking out of the exact same university.
Getting hired at the same mid-tier tech firm.
Right, for the exact same starting salary. We are talking about financial clones here, identical inputs.
Same health, same intelligence, same 40-hour work week.
Right, so you project their lives forward just 5 years, and the divergence is shocking.
It really is. By age 27, Alex has built this robust emergency fund. He's deployed capital into index funds. He's acquired a piece of real estate.
And his net worth is actively compounding, without his daily intervention.
Yes. While Ben, on the other hand, despite getting the exact same direct deposits twice a month, he's just treading water.
No liquid capital, revolving credit card debt.
Just a baseline level of stress that hums behind everything he does.
So the big question is, how do identical inputs yield completely opposite outputs in just 60 months?
Well, it starts with basically the most pervasive cognitive distortion in modern finance, which is conflating income with wealth.
Yes, we are visually conditioned to do this. We look at the exhaust of a financial engine and we mistake it for the actual engine.
We really do. The luxury car, the massive house, the designer clothes. We look at high consumption and we just automatically code that as wealth.
Right, because it looks rich.
Exactly.
Ooh.
But high consumption is just high income being burned. Income is simply the velocity of money moving into your ecosystem.
It's water flowing from a pipe.
Spot on. Wealth is the reservoir. It is strictly what you retain and put to work after subtracting liabilities.
And that illusion is incredibly dangerous.
Oh, it's fatal, because you could have a massive inflow. Say you're earning $500,000 a year.
Which sounds amazing.
Right. But if your outflow is $501,000, you are functionally broke.
You are just broke at a higher tax bracket.
And carrying infinitely more anxiety, by the way.
I always think about this as the iceberg illusion. But I really want to take that analogy further because the basic version is, it's a little cliche.
Sure.
We know income is the flashy part of the iceberg above the water, the luxury vacation, the nice watch. And wealth is the invisible mass below the surface.
Right.
But the actual physics of an iceberg are what make this interesting to me. An iceberg only stays afloat because of the massive, dense block of ice beneath it.
That's a great point.
If the visible part on top gets too heavy, too extravagant, and there isn't enough mass below the surface to support it,
The entire thing capsizes.
exactly, it flips over.
And that structural instability is exactly what we see in high-earning, low-net-worth individuals. They just keep adding ice to the top.
Right, they finance a sports car.
And the bank owns the car, so it's not even their asset. But it adds massive weight to the top of their iceberg in the form of those monthly debt obligations.
While the unseen mass below the water, their actual liquid wealth, is just completely hollowed out.
So you pull up to a red light, right?
Yeah.
And you see someone in a $100,000 Mercedes.
The reflex is to think, oh, they have $100,000.
Exactly. The societal reflex kicks in. But the mathematical reality is often that they are negative $100,000 in that specific transaction.
Meanwhile, you look at the woman in the 10-year-old Honda next to them.
Right. She might have a zero debt balance sheet and $1 million in liquid equities.
This is exactly why the aesthetic of wealth is such a trap. True wealth is silent.
It really is. It is unspent potential.
Yeah, it's the choices you didn't make, the phone you didn't upgrade, the house you didn't upsize.
But we live in an attention economy that exclusively rewards visible consumption, which means building actual wealth requires this rebellious psychological stance. You literally have to be willing to look less successful than you actually are.
Which brings us back to our guys, Alex and Ben. The difference between them over those 5 years wasn't some massive windfall.
No, not at all.
It was the compound effect of their daily micro decisions.
The mechanics are remarkably mundane, honestly. Let's look at their respective burn rates. Every month, Alex operates defensively.
He clears his fixed overhead first: rent, utilities, groceries.
Yes. And then he systematically quarantines a specific margin of his capital, say 20%.
He moves it out of his immediate reach.
Exactly. Before he can rationalize spending it, it's gone.
But, okay, let's play devil's advocate here for a second.
Yeah.
If you were making a standard entry-level salary, saving 20% might literally mean $200 or maybe $300 a month.
Sure.
In an economy with fluctuating inflation and these massive asset prices, saving $200 feels mathematically useless to a lot of people.
Oh, I hear that all the time.
Right, because it doesn't buy a yacht, doesn't even buy a weekend in Tulum. The brain looks at that $200 and thinks, what is the point?
But the point isn't what the $200 can buy today. The point is the neurological habit of capturing the margin.
Okay, unpack that.
Yes, in the short term, holding on to a small amount of capital feels completely insignificant. But we really have to look at what that buffer does to your neurochemistry over time.
The neurochemistry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Alex builds just a 3-month cash buffer, his cortisol levels actually drop.
Oh, wow.
He goes into his quarterly performance review without the desperation of someone who needs a bonus just to make rent.
So he negotiates better.
He takes calculated risks at work. He's not operating out of fear.
So the micro savings actually change his behavior in the macro environment? That makes sense.
Exactly. While Ben, on the other hand, is just riding this constant dopamine roller coaster.
Payday hits, dopamine spikes.
And he translates that directly into consumption.
We see this so clearly with consumer electronics, right? Like, let's take two other profiles from our deep dive. Emma and David.
Perfect example. Emma replaces her smartphone every 12 months.
Without fail.
The hardware from last year is perfectly capable, but she is buying the status signal of the new camera lens.
While David runs his device until the battery basically functionally dies, which might take 4 or 5 years.
Right. And it's not just about the $1,000 saved on a phone, though. I mean, that's a rounding error over a lifetime.
Exactly. It's the proxy for their entire financial philosophy.
The phone upgrade is really just a symptom of a much larger syndrome, which is lifestyle inflation.
Yeah, if you are upgrading your phone purely for dopamine, you are probably upgrading your car, your furniture, and your restaurants for the exact same reason.
Which brings us to the absolute silent killer of wealth, the raise.
Oh, man, the raise. This is huge. So let's talk about Sarah and Michael. They both get promoted.
Both of them get an extra $1,000 a month in take-home pay.
And Sarah immediately moves into a luxury apartment building. She starts taking Ubers everywhere. She upgrades her wardrobe.
And a year later, her income is up $12,000, but her net worth hasn't moved a single inch.
Because her burn rate expanded to completely consume her new oxygen supply.
Sarah is caught in a biological imperative here. In primate hierarchies, increased resources usually mean increased status signaling to secure your position.
Wait, really? So it's biological?
Yeah, when humans get more money, our instinct isn't to store it, It's to display it so the tribe knows we are successful.
Okay, but if I push back on this for the listener, is the alternative just complete asceticism?
What do you mean?
Like, if I'm listening to this on my flight right now, I'm thinking, do I just have to live like a monk, never buy a nice coffee, never celebrate a promotion, and just hoard capital until I'm 70? Because that sounds pretty miserable.
I get that. But asceticism is actually a fast track to burnout. The sustainable model is what Michael does.
Okay, so what does Michael do?
Michael also gets that $1,000 raise, but he applies a predetermined split, a 50-50 rule, for instance.
So he takes $500 and automatically routes it to his investment accounts.
Exactly. And the other 500? He guiltlessly absorbs it into his lifestyle. He gets the nicer apartment or the better dinners.
So he is capturing the margin. He's allowing his lifestyle to inflate, but at a controlled, slower velocity than his income is inflating.
Yes. And over 20 years, the gap between his income and his expenses continues to widen.
And that widening gap is basically the exact definition of financial freedom.
Precisely. Sarah's gap stays at 0. Michael's gap becomes a massive surplus.
But making that choice, it requires a massive shift in how you even define what a dollar is.
It really does. Most of us are taught that money is just a medium of exchange. A dollar is a token you trade for a coffee or a pair of shoes.
But the shift from consumer to owner requires viewing money not as a token of exchange, but as a unit of labor.
Historically, people use the analogy of a farmer for this.
Right. A farmer harvests wheat but never consumes the entire yield.
They must retain a percentage of the seeds to plant for the following season. If you consume the seed corn, you starve next winter.
I think the seed analogy works, but let's modernize it a bit for the deep dive. A lot of people talk about treating your capital like a tiny robot workforce.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, every time you buy a liability, like a depreciating asset, like a luxury car or designer clothes, you are essentially firing your robots.
You are sending them away to work for someone else's balance sheet.
Right. But when you buy an equity-producing asset, you are buying a factory that builds more robots for you. But the reality is a bit harsher than that, isn't it?
Oh, much harsher. Because those metaphorical robots don't just sit there perfectly. Capital allocation has friction.
Friction.
Yeah. If you buy a rental property, those robots can break down. The roof leaks. The tenant stops paying. Building wealth isn't just mindlessly hoarding tiny robots. It's the difficult, intellectually demanding process of building a self-lubricating system that doesn't constantly require you to be the mechanic.
Which brings us to the core definitions of assets and liabilities. But let's elevate this beyond the basic assets put money in your pocket, liabilities take money out definition.
Sure.
In a modern economy, what does a high-leverage asset actually look like?
Well, we have to look at what we call the metabolic rate of your balance sheet.
A metabolic rate, okay.
Yes. A liability is metabolically negative. It feeds off you. High-interest credit card debt is a parasite that compounds against you at 20% a year.
Yeah.
But an asset is metabolically positive. It feeds the organism. It's an index fund, a piece of intellectual property, a business system.
But acquiring those positive assets requires overwriting millions of years of human evolution. I mean, we were talking about delayed gratification here.
The neurological battle here is just fascinating. You've likely heard of the classic marshmallow test with children.
Eat one now or wait an hour and get two.
Exactly. We laugh at the kids agonizing over it, but adults fail this test perpetually.
We really do, but why? Mechanically, what is happening in the brain when we choose the leased sports car today over the compounded index fund in 10 years?
It's a conflict between two parts of the brain. The amygdala, which drives immediate survival instincts, and the prefrontal cortex, which handles long-term planning.
Okay.
For 99% of human history, storing resources for 30 years made absolutely no sense. Food rotted. Nomads couldn't carry heavy gold.
So if you found a calorie, you consumed it immediately.
Exactly. So when you get a bonus check today, your primitive brain screens at you to convert it into immediate tangible status or pleasure.
And investing requires using your prefrontal cortex to actively suppress a biological survival instinct.
Yes, and it is exhausting.
So how do you hack that? I mean, if willpower is finite, you can't just white-knuckle your way to wealth over 40 years.
You can't. You remove the decision entirely. You automate the investments before the money even hits your primary checking account.
You don't rely on willpower. You rely on system design.
Exactly.
And once that system is in place and you start acquiring these assets, something magical happens to your relationship with time.
It completely shifts. The entire construct of the middle class is built on a linear equation.
Yeah.
Time equals money.
You trade 1 hour of your labor for a predetermined amount of fiat currency.
And the problem with the linear equation is the hard physical limit. There are only 24 hours in a day.
Right.
Even if you are a highly paid lawyer billing $1,000 an hour, if you stop billing, the revenue drops to zero. You are still trapped in the one-to-one exchange.
Decoupling time from money is basically the holy grail. It's moving from a linear equation to an asymmetric one.
And you do this by acquiring leverage. Historically, leverage meant labor, managing other humans.
Or capital, like borrowing money to make more money.
Right. But today, the most powerful forms of leverage are products with zero marginal cost of reproduction.
Let's break that down for the listener. Zero marginal cost.
Think about code or media.
Yeah.
If you write a piece of software, it might take you 1,000 hours of intensive labor.
Okay.
But once it's written, the cost of distributing it to one person or 1 million people is effectively the same. It takes no extra time to duplicate it.
So you sleep, and the software works.
Exactly.
An author writing a book is a classic example of this, or creating a digital training protocol. But I can hear the listener objecting right now.
What are they saying?
They're saying, look, I'm an accountant or a nurse or a logistics manager. I don't know how to code, and I'm not writing a novel, so how do I decouple my time?
That's a fair question. You do it by shifting your focus from the cost of your time to the value of your output.
Tell me more about that.
Let's look at the $10,000 machine concept from our source material. A novice looks at a piece of software or a physical machine that costs $10,000 and says, I can't afford that expense.
Because they just see the price tag.
Right. A wealth builder looks at it and asks, what is the yield?
Oh, I see. If that $10,000 investment allows you to automate a process that saves your company $50,000 a year.
Or lets your small business process triple the orders without hiring more staff.
It's not an expense, it's a multiplier.
Precisely. And you have to apply that same multiplier logic to yourself. The highest leverage asset you will ever manage is your own cognitive capacity.
Meaning?
Meaning continuous education is not just a platitude. It is a strict financial requirement.
Yeah, I look at the half-life of skills today. If you learned digital marketing or coding in 2018 and you haven't updated your mental models, well, your knowledge base is functionally obsolete right now.
It really is. Let's contrast Emily and Daniel from the deep dive.
Okay, let's do it.
Emily clocks out at 5 p.m. and dedicates 4 hours to high-quality television.
Which is a perfectly reasonable way to decompress, by the way. No judgment there.
Right, totally normal. But Daniel takes just one of those hours, 60 minutes a day, and aggressively targets a bottleneck in his industry.
So he learns a new software architecture, or studies advanced negotiation tactics, or data analytics.
Yes. In week 1, Daniel looks like an idiot compared to Emily, who is relaxed and culturally engaged.
But neuroplasticity is compounding just like money does.
Exactly. After 2 years, Daniel has effectively installed a new operating system in his brain. He possesses asymmetric knowledge.
And the market ruthlessly rewards asymmetric knowledge.
It does. He doesn't just get a cost of living raise. He jumps to a new firm for a 40% premium, or he launches a consultancy.
But the process of acquiring that knowledge is brutal. The analogy of learning a new language is perfect here.
How so?
When you learn a language, you are going to mispronounce words. You will use the wrong verb tense and look completely foolish in front of native speakers.
Yes.
But if you view that embarrassment as a fatal flaw, you will never speak fluently.
The embarrassment is the feedback loop. Financial education is identical. You are going to allocate capital poorly at some point.
You might start a side project that completely fails.
Right. And if you view that lost capital as a failure, you will retreat to the safety of the time for money treadmill.
But if you view it as the tuition paid to learn market dynamics, it becomes an asset.
Which culminates in what is arguably the central theorem of all economics.
Money follows value.
Yes. It sounds incredibly simple, but it is deeply profound. People constantly ask, how can I make more money?
Which is a very natural question to ask.
It is, but it is a selfish inbound question. The market does not care about your desire for money. The market only cares about its own friction and pain points.
So you have to flip the polarity of the question. Instead of how do I make more, it must become how do I solve higher magnitude problems?
Exactly. A primary care physician solves a significant problem for a dozen patients a day and earns a great living.
But a biotech engineer who develops a patent that cures a disease for 1 million people.
They solve a problem at scale and earn a fortune.
It's the scale and the magnitude. If you are sweeping the floors at a warehouse, you are solving a very easily replaceable problem.
Right.
But if you design the automated logistic software that runs the warehouse, you are solving a multi-million-dollar bottleneck.
And your compensation will naturally tether itself to the magnitude of the problem you solve.
That makes perfect sense. But, even when people understand the mechanics, the assets, the leverage, the value creation, they often self-sabotage.
Oh, constantly.
They cling to these protective myths, societal narratives we use to protect our egos.
The myths are so powerful. Let's start with myth number 1, the luck absolution.
Sure, they created value, but they were in the right place at the right time. It's all luck.
Now, denying luck is foolish. The macroeconomic climate you graduate into, your genetic baseline for health, the zip code of your childhood.
Massive variables entirely outside of your control.
Yes, we call this the surface area of luck.
But the distinction is how you interact with that surface area. I really love the equalizer thought experiment from the source text.
Oh, it's brilliant. Imagine you take 2 individuals and eliminate the luck variance.
You give them both $100,000 in venture capital.
You introduce them to the exact same network of mentors.
And you drop them into the exact same economic quarter.
One individual obsesses over customer feedback, iterates their product daily, and works relentlessly to refine their systems.
And the other assumes the capital will just do the work. They ignore the mentors and build a product no one actually wants.
5 years later, one is on the cover of a magazine and the other is bankrupt.
You cannot blame the macro environment because the environment was absolutely identical.
Right. Luck opens the door. It provides the initial velocity. But preparation, resilience, and adaptability are the engine that sustains the flight.
If you haven't built the skills, all the luck in the world will just slip right through your fingers.
The second myth is the psychological barrier. It's this deep-seated narrative that wealth corrupts.
I don't want to be rich because rich people are greedy, selfish, and miserable.
This is perhaps the most destructive mental model out there because it subconsciously forces you to reject wealth to preserve your identity as a good person.
But money doesn't possess a moral alignment. It's an inanimate amplifier.
We call it the magnifier effect.
Yeah.
A $100 bill doesn't have a conscience.
Right.
If you are a deeply insecure, paranoid, and selfish person, when you have $0 in your bank account, acquiring $10 million will not fix your psychology.
It will just make you an incredibly powerful, heavily armed, isolated, and paranoid millionaire.
Exactly. But consider the flip side of that. If you're naturally empathetic, community-focused, and generous, injecting capital into your ecosystem magnifies those traits.
You go from volunteering at a soup kitchen to funding the construction of 5 new community centers.
The money didn't make you good. It just scaled your existing goodness.
Which forces us to confront the final, ultimate question of this entire deep dive. If money is just a magnifier, what is its actual relationship to human happiness?
This is where we have to talk about hedonic adaptation.
Right. Let's go back to the guy in the $100,000 Mercedes at the red light.
Yes. For the first 2 weeks, driving that car is a transcendent experience.
The leather smells perfect. The acceleration pins him to the seat. His brain is just flooded with dopamine.
But the human nervous system is designed to adapt to baseline changes. Within 3 months, the dopamine receptors downregulate.
So the incredible sports car is no longer a novelty. It is simply his transportation.
Exactly. He sits in traffic feeling the exact same mild irritation he felt in his old Honda.
It's the hedonic treadmill. You buy the bigger house, the thrill fades. You buy the luxury watch, it just becomes a heavy piece of metal on your wrist.
Which leads to the natural pushback.
Right. If the luxury items fundamentally fail to provide lasting happiness, what is the point of the struggle?
Why delay gratification? Why build the assets? Why are we having this conversation at all?
Yeah, exactly. Why do any of this?
Because we have to accurately define what capital is capable of purchasing. Money is terrible at buying joy.
Truly terrible.
It is utterly incapable of buying purpose, health, or deep, resonant relationships.
Yeah.
But it is exceptional at buying the removal of friction.
Yes.
Money buys the absence of anxiety when your car breaks down. It buys the ability to walk away from a toxic boss.
It buys the resources to hire the best surgeon for your parent.
Capital does not build the architecture of a happy life. It merely buys the scaffolding that allows you to build it yourself, without the constant grinding panic of survival.
It buys optionality, the freedom to allocate your time exactly how you see fit.
Precisely. Let's jump back to Alex and Ben one last time, 30 years later.
All right, they're both 52 years old now.
Alex still goes to an office, or maybe he consults, but he works exclusively on projects that interest him.
If he doesn't like a client, he fires them. because his underlying iceberg, his asset base, generates enough yield to cover his burn rate. His time belongs to him.
Ben is also still working. But Ben is a hostage.
He spent 3 decades inflating his lifestyle to match his income.
He has a massive mortgage, 2 car payments, and 0 liquid assets.
He has to tolerate the toxic boss, the endless meetings, the compromises, because his survival depends on the next paycheck.
The disparity at age 52 wasn't created by a singular dramatic event. It was the cumulative weight of 10,000 tiny, invisible decisions made on a random Tuesday in their 20s and 30s.
People always ask, when is the optimal time to start aggressively building an asset base?
The common question.
I always think of the 2 trees analogy. If you plant an oak tree today and you look at an oak tree that was planted 10 years ago, well, they both have the same soil, the same rain, the same sun.
But the older tree is massive. Its roots are deep. It provides immense shade.
It didn't grow larger because it was a superior genetic specimen. It grew larger simply because it was exposed to the single most powerful force in finance: time.
The compound interest of time. The best time to plant the tree was a decade ago. The second best time is today.
All right, as this flight you're on begins its descent, we want to leave you with a visualization.
Forget the theoretical models for a second. Look at the back of the airplane seat in front of you.
Imagine that the plastic casing of that seat suddenly turns into a digital screen.
On the left side of the screen, a ledger appears, showing exactly where every single dollar you earned in the last 90 days actually went.
Every coffee, every subscription, every liability, every asset.
And on the right side of the screen, it projects your calendar, showing exactly how you spent every waking hour over those same 90 days.
If a forensic psychologist walked down the aisle of this plane, looked at your screen, and analyzed the raw data of your capital and your time, what would they conclude about you?
What hidden anxieties, what unstated priorities, and what future trajectory would those numbers reveal?
Because the numbers don't lie. They cut right through the narratives we tell ourselves.
The first step toward actual structural wealth isn't rushing out to buy a fractional share of an index fund or starting a side hustle.
No, your very first step is looking at the cold, hard data of your own life and deciding if you actually like the person those numbers are magnifying.
Spot on.
Thank you for letting us ride along with you. Safe travels, and we will see you on the next deep dive.